Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everybody. I hope that your day is off to a great start. I'm so excited that you have made Dance Teacher Pep Talk a part of your day. And this is definitely an episode I think that is going to dive really deep for so many of us. And this was actually a topic suggestion that came through on our Instagram. I had put up a story asking if there's any topics or areas where Dance Teacher Pep Talk could support you further in your dance teaching journey. And this topic that came through, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is going to be such an important episode. And also just one to really continue to think about because I don't think this is a topic that we'll experience once in our career and then we're done with it. I think it's something that will continue to resurface at different phases. And I know from my personal experience, it has definitely done that. And so today we're talking all about self doubt. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to compile ways that I've found that to break through that self doubt or when I'm going into that space of doubting, tools and tips that I have used myself to get me through. And so, if you have listened to my burnout story episode, I had kind of talked a little bit about this because a lot of my burnout did stem from the start of it was self doubt, and it kind of just spiraled from there. And so, if you're looking for more information on my personal journey, I would definitely recommend listening to my burnout story episode. And I'm going to get into even more of it today. So, if you are experiencing self doubt, there are a lot of areas where this monster is going to creep up because I'm calling it a monster because it's definitely something that can like take hold of us and just really grip us and almost like start us questioning and second guessing everything that we're doing. And it's not something that we ever invite into our lives. It just shows up. And it always seems to show up at really difficult times. So, some examples of this. We're going to talk today in the episode, breaking it down into how self doubt may show up in our classwork. And we're also going to talk about how self doubt might creep up with choreography. So, one way in classes that it may creep up is if your students are showing disinterest or maybe a little bit of an attitude here and there. That is definitely an area where I begin to doubt myself. I doubt my class. I ask, do they like it? And that energy can so weigh you down. And I know that even if it's not about you in that moment, I know when you're walking in and the student energy is low, that is really hard to shift. And I talk about this a lot on Dance Teacher Pep Talk because I'm really passionate about that. I'm passionate about energy. I'm passionate about how to shift that and how to work with it because what I've learned is it's never easy to work against something. It's much easier to work with it. And so maybe that self doubt is coming from a disinterest by the students and maybe even at times an attitude. So we're going to talk about that a little later on. Sometimes the self doubt creeps up as like a comparison issue. And comparison is so common these days, not only amongst ourselves, but also our dancers, because, we have social media, which can be a great thing and it can be a difficult thing because we have access to all of these things that we can compare ourselves to constantly, not even just dance related. So, comparison, another way this comes up for myself, and maybe you've experienced this too, but sometimes we may compare ourselves to other teachers and choreographers. And also, like, even when our students say something like, well, Miss Emily said this, but yet, like, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, yeah, I also said that. But why is it gold when it comes out of Miss Emily's mouth? It's the same thing, the same correction, the same critique. And yet you begin doubting yourself because if they're finally hearing it because it's what Miss Emily said, then how it's almost like you start to think about how you're addressing certain topics, or is what you're saying getting through to the dancers? So that can be an element of self-doubt as well. There are so many ways that self-doubt can creep up. And so, for today's discussion purposes, I thought it would be important to break it down into two parts. And the first one we're going to talk about today is choreography. Now, choreography can take on different elements because you have like your choreography that you're doing for your recitals, your school performances, winter shows, things like that. And then you also may have choreography that you're doing for the competition team. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about competition choreography because I think it might potentially be the area that we experience more self doubt when we're doing choreography. And again, I'm speaking from my personal experience here, but when we're doing choreography for recital performance and things like that, we put pressure on ourselves because we want to show our dancers in the best light. But I don't feel myself as much of a doubting energy as I do when it comes to competition choreography. And I think that's because I know and have been working with my students all year and know where they're at, what they can do, how to show them in their best light, and to bring it forth to the dance stage for recital. Now, if choreography is not a strength of yours, maybe that also can be an area of self doubt is your recital performance work. But I feel that for me, what I'm going to talk more on today is for competition related choreography. And so I want to start off by posing these questions. And what we're going to do here is we're going to reflect on our work. And I want you to think about all the pieces you might be creating right now. And you could do this also again for recital. But asking yourself, who is this piece for? Is it for the competition stage? Is it for yourself? Is it a personal story that you're sharing or working through on your dancers? And actually, I think I'm going to talk about this a little bit too. Is it for your dancers? Is it something that they feel really connected and important to? What is the who in this? Okay, so who is this for? And the reason why I'm asking this is because if we really get down to who the piece is for, we can start to understand maybe where our self doubts are coming in, because that is where the upset would lie. So if you are choreographing a piece for competition, the who, if it comes down to the judges, if you are choreographing a piece specifically for the judges, wanting it to score well, wanting it to be seen and done well, all of this stuff, sometimes we take a big disconnect there. And of course, number one, of course, we want our students to do well and feel good and succeed in what it is they're doing. But when it comes to choreography, it can be so difficult because everybody has an opinion, everybody likes what they like, and everybody doesn't like what they don't like. So when we are choreographing for competition, we have to really check ourselves if it is for the judges or is it for the audience? Is it to make an impactful point? Is it for the dancers to have a memory or an important feeling around the piece that you're doing? Is it for fun, for enjoyment, for excitement? Is it a high energy piece? So, getting down to the who and the why of your piece is going to be really important because for me, these are other questions that I ask myself is how much do I weigh people liking my choreography? And there are times and years where I've definitely weighed that more than other years because when it comes down to it at the end of the day, we all want to be liked. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be seen for the work that we're doing. And if that comes with accolade and praise, well, that's wonderful. But we also have to remember first that we have to feel the pride within ourselves of this work. And so, weighing a person's feelings about your choreography is definitely something that's going to push us into self doubt. Of course, we want to be heard and we want to be seen, but ask yourself, do you like your choreography? Is it important to you? Do you feel like it fits exactly what you were envisioning and things like that? And if you don't like it, what do you do about it? And ask yourself, what is it about it that you don't like? Because the choreography is the product of your artistry. And sometimes when we're choreographing, we, especially for competition, we almost start to choreograph in the sense of what will do well at competition or what will be received well. And like I said before, of course we want our students to do well. And of course we want them to feel successful at competition. But we also have to remember that the choreography is the part of that we are setting onto them. And what they do with it is what they do with it. And I have found that I have doubted my work more when I was creating it for someone else. So when I was creating work for the competition judges, for the scoring well, for the possibility of accolades and praise to almost validate that, like, okay, I was doing a good job. And of course, we're also using our choreography to help them score well. It's like the concept of how it's better that you put in a clean single pirouette in the choreography over something that's like a sloppy double pirouette. It comes down to how are we setting up our students for their best performances and also a challenge for them in that season. And so of course, that is all a part of our role in the choreography sense, but just checking in because everyone all around wants to do a good job. Everyone wants to be recognized. But taking the recognition out of it, are you happy with your work? So, just like I asked, do you like your choreography? Are you happy with it? And if you don't, what are you going to do about that? You know, I have received choreography awards and things like that in the past, but can I tell you each and every piece that has gotten recognized? No, I can't. And I honestly, I can't remember. But what sticks out in my mind are the pieces that I was proud of, that made an impact, that were moving, that were special for not only myself, but for the students as well. And that really was such an eye opener for me when I realized that I don't remember. I couldn't tell you what piece won what award, but I remember the pieces that made the most impact on myself. And it's interesting because a lot of the times the pieces that made the most impact on myself also make the most impact on the dancers. And so when I look at those pieces, I think to myself, was I successful with this? I can't remember what the scores were. I can't remember if there was additional praise or accolades on the choreography end of things. But if I'm remembering these pieces, chances are so are my students. And to me, that is the recognition. So it's not the award that's attached to it, but it's the feeling that you get. It's the pride that you have within your work. And it's, caring about what others thinks is like, of course, a huge part of the human experience, but you have to care about your work first. And it isn't like an overly proud thing. I know I was saying, like, do you have pride in your work? It's more of like an internal pride. Are you satisfied with the work that you're doing? And like I said, if you aren't, what do we do? And I truly and honestly, I've scratched many pieces and started from the beginning again. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've also even pushed through sections of work that I wasn't really proud of. And it literally, like, it would affect me like nails on a chalkboard when I was watching it because I knew that that section, I should have changed it. And I wasn't happy with it. And even if it was like the most awe spectacular section and wow, that was so cool. If I wasn't proud of what it was in the sense of like that it flowed or that it made sense within the piece, maybe it was just movement for the sake of movement in the piece. I just am going to tell myself as a future tip, get in there and fix it. Because even if that turn sequence was out of this world amazing, if you in your heart space feel like it doesn't flow, it doesn't make sense, it is a disconnect from the other parts of the choreography in the piece, well, then fix it because at that moment, that might be a section where you're choreographing for something outside of the piece, something outside of yourself. And again, it comes back to how can we make each section of the work that we're doing something that we're proud of? And, it also comes down to the execution of the work you're giving. I mean, not every piece that you choreograph is going to have a meaningful impact on your heart, but we can find greater depth and connection in what we're giving. So even if it is a mini lyrical piece that is, somewhere over the rainbow or something, can we find the joy in that? Can we find the special moments? And maybe it's not about having this incredibly out of this world, interesting and brand new choreography. Maybe it's about having choreography that is making the students successful and making them feel good about what they're doing. And that can give you pride right there because that is your work and that work is pushing them, and they're reaching new heights with their dancing, or maybe they're just having a really wonderful experience, and that can give you that internal pride or that sense of satisfaction with the work that you're doing. So it doesn't always have to be these deep profound pieces that leave these lasting images and marks on your mind because it was about this such and such a time in your life. So there are so many ways that we can find joy in what we're doing. But if we are not, and we are just finding areas of doubt, what can we do to change that? And how can we work through these pieces, finding more of ourselves in them? It's so hard with choreography too, because we attach our name to these things. And we also have to take into the consideration the human state of the dancers working within the piece too. What did they feel within this piece? And is that something that you can be proud of? Is that something that you can feel good about bringing forward to the stage or bringing forward to the auditorium? It's really comes down to the mesh of all of the variables coming together. And maybe too, some of it might come down to music. Maybe you really are vibing with a song, and I'd say go for it, use it. And maybe it's a song that you are just like pushing through and cannot get through it. Well, maybe ask yourself, is it too late to change? Is it too late to shift? Because if you're not going to be wild about the concept, that might not necessarily ever change. So, setting yourself up with something that feels even remotely inspired to start, I think is really important as well, because you're going to be listening to that music for months and months on end, and you want it to be something that's going to continue to inspire and light you up. So, music can also be a big part of this, and just making sure that you're sticking true to what you are. And with music, I know that sometimes with competition, there will be all these threads on Facebook groups and stuff about what is going to be the most popular songs for this season, or what song do you never want to hear again on the competition stage. And I know that's like all in good fun and it gets a conversation going, but don't let anything like that hold you back. If there is a song that you love, go for it. Because if you're feeling that spark and that inspiration, that's going to pool over into everything you do. And even if it is on the radio and it's in the top 10 or whatever like that, work with it. You have a vision and it's going to inspire and push you. So I don't really necessarily see anything wrong with that. All right, so now that we've talked about choreography, I want to shift into class work because, as I mentioned in the beginning, sometimes it comes down to the energy in the class. If there's low energy, if there is like an attitude that you're facing within your classes, these are things that can cause self-doubt. And so, things that have helped me, and just, talking on this a little bit and sort of just to encourage you, is I ask for student feedback because if something's bothering them, it might be bothering them enough that it's affecting their class experience. And also a reminder too that a lot of the time, the energy or the attitude that you may be feeling, it might not even be directed towards you. But if we talk about it, if we discuss it, it helps the students to understand that their energy isn't creating a good vibe within the environment to continue this positive energy or whatever it is that you're looking for within the class. And it's not to say that, okay, let's all just smile. No, it's let's talk and let's work through this and let's try to think about maybe what's going on. And so for feedback, you could create a survey. You could do just even a discussion, an open discussion. I noticed you all have been coming in with really low energy in class on such and such a day. What's going on? Is there anything that I can do to help or change that would make this class experience better energy for you? And also have that reciprocated because as the teacher, you want to feel a good energy for your class and just to promote that in the environment. When we push through something and we push against it, there is not going to be a lot of give. So we need to stop and then try to find what is going to flow through again. So we don't want to just push through and make it happen. We want to get real because it's affecting us. It's creating self-doubt in us. We're starting to worry about, like, is our class not good enough? Are they not enjoying the class? All of this. So asking, what is it about the class experience that you enjoy? What is about the class experience that you're not enjoying? Why is there difficulty? A lot of the time, the circumstances are outside of us, and you might not be able to help them through this. I totally equate this to actually to something I heard about that can happen in parenthood. I remember like either somebody told me this or I read this somewhere, but as a mother, sometimes the child will throw big feelings to the mom or the parent or whoever, because it's their safe zone, it's their comfort. So like sometimes like after someone has been like watching my child, they may be like, oh, she was so happy, she didn't fuss at all, but like literally as soon as you walk through the door, they like start crying or fussing or something. And they in that moment, it's not that they're sad, they are just so overwhelmed with big feelings that it just comes out. It just comes out like a big temper tantrum or like a big blah. And I truly feel that this applies to our dancers too, especially the ones that we've had for many years. And if they're comfortable around us, they are trusting enough to share their most vulnerable states. And sometimes it's at the expense of the vibe of the class. And so, what can we do then? What can we do to energetically shift? Because it's not that we're catering our class to the dancers, but when something isn't working, I really do think we need to ask why, especially if it begins affecting us and our ability to teach. Now, if the feedback comes back and the students are saying, maybe, okay, class has become boring, the work that we're doing feels like review, it feels like all the stuff that we did last year, we haven't learned anything new, that sort of thing. If that's feedback that you're receiving, maybe you can explain your process then to them. We are taking this many weeks to review. We're going to be starting new material here and there. Kind of explain the process because I also think, living in a world that's so instantaneous, you go online, you type in whatever you want, Amazon delivers something 2 days later, whatever it is. They're wanting instantaneous change. And so if you're doing a safe practice of reviewing or preparing the body for whatever new skill that's to come in like a couple weeks or whatever like that, explain that to them, explain to them how process works. And also maybe it'll give you that chance too, because okay, this is going to sound a little bit harsh, I don't want it to sound harsh, but if that is feedback that we're receiving, maybe it is kind of for us to take a look at, okay, where in our class plans have we not brought in something new yet? How have we not changed it up? And I think that happens too when we just get in our routine and we do our thing, and we could be the greatest teachers in the world, and that we really could be. And it could still get monotonous and it could still get difficult in the sense of like, where's the new material? And I'm not saying bring new material every week, but it might be an eye opener for you. I know for me it has been when in the past situations have come up like that because I realized, oh wow, they are ready for more. And I mean, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're not ready for more, but you can be the judge of that and you can take a look at how your class is planning. If it's a technique class, you can also take that time to explain to them, technique is a specific progress of growth that happens. We do repetitive actions for a reason. We're not going to go into combination every single time you walk in the door and do all this choreography and like do our videos or whatever like that, because that is the product of the technique that we're learning. That's the product of the dancing that we're learning. And we can't just go into all that fun, exciting, like choreography or whatnot. And it's all the product of what comes before that first. And so I know, like, a lot of the time with workshop and convention, it sometimes happens where, like, you just have a whole day of combinations. You just go in, you learn a combination, and it's like so cool for the dancers and all of that. But you just have to remind them that the reason they're able to do those things is because of the classwork that they're taking. So, just talking about the value behind things, I think is so important because we know it, but we can't really necessarily assume that a dancer knows that because they don't see the process through the eyes of a dance teacher. And so, with these different elements of self doubt that could come up, I know there could be others too, but I've put together a list of what we can do when self doubt creeps up. And I've kind of talked and processed through some of these, but I'm just going to use some of my other tools and tips that have helped me to process. The first one is take a step back. Okay, take a step back, take some time to reflect and see, is there something that could be done differently, that could change, whether it's a piece you're choreographing or a class that you're teaching. And with that step back, I'm going to go to number two, and that is journal. write down or type out things and the way that you're feeling because that's going to help you to process through it more. It's also going to maybe help to find some inspiration in there, and it may show you where your doubt is. Where your doubt resides in. So, like, where is it coming from? Where is it stemming? And that can be something that can work through because sometimes self doubt just feels like an icky feeling, but we need to like process, step back, and journal to see what it is that is causing this issue. And with that, with the journal, you could even have this on your phone. This is number three. When you get a trigger, something that sets you off into that feeling of self doubt, immediately write it down. And maybe you don't have a chance to get back to it, but maybe like later on you do. And just have like it in your phone, your notes app or something. And so you can just like quickly jot it down and work through this over time. What was it that really bothered you about that instance? So if you're coming in and the dancers are just giving a really low vibe and a low energy, go over to your phone, write down whatever it was, or even if that was just a topic, and go home and think about it. Maybe not that night, but maybe the next day, because you're going to have more clarity later on. If you go right into it in that moment, your emotions are high. It's the energy is not necessarily good for processing. So I always recommend taking the night or taking 24 hours or something before you take a look at what it was that was triggering to you. Number four, we did talk about this, is getting feedback from your students and seeing, what's working and what isn't and what's going on for them. And if you can help them through that. Because, oh, I should also mention, we're dance teachers, okay? We are not their therapists or counselors. And though they do maybe try to ask us questions like that at times, we always need to make sure that when we are giving advice to them, we're just saying this is from our personal experience, but we are not, unless we are a professional in that industry, but just guiding them to the resources that can help them in those places is also something important. I just wanted to mention that because, like I said, sometimes the vibe is not necessarily you. It could be something they're going through, and maybe it's not something that we can help, but maybe it's something we can help steer them towards. Okay, number five, revamping. If you are feeling self doubt, try changing up your class one day and just seeing what happens. I did an episode on warm ups and revamping, and so you could even start there. Maybe instead of just going in and doing your regular class flow, listening to the revamp episode and see if there's something in there that could work for you to change it up and see what happens with that because you might be surprised. Same thing with your choreography. Number six, can you move differently? Is there any like new improv prompts that you could use yourself for movement? Are there new movement concepts that you could introduce? And even that, when you're stuck in the movement, just like I said with number one, take a step back. Maybe take a pause. Maybe this week we don't add on to the choreography. Maybe we take a look at things that we did. Maybe we start throwing improv prompts on the kids with it, even in whatever style dance. It doesn't matter. Just say, I'm going to put the music on. Show me how the music moves you, and see what happens from them, because that can also inspire you as well. Number seven, a way to change it up is to reverse the class or do a class suggested class. So for this, what I usually do, and when I talk about reverse the class, yeah, reverse the class would be like you start with a brief warm up for safety, and then you go right to combination, and then you end with a cool down or exercises that cool the body down. So sometimes reversing the class can change that vibe, can change that energy for yourself and the dancers. Another thing, as I mentioned, a class suggested class. So what I do with that is I do a closed eye vote and I pick three different categories, and it could be different depending on what you do for your class and how you structure your class. So I kind of break it down into like the three components being like your warm up, your skills, and your combination. So like number one, with a closed eye vote, I would do, what would you guys rather work on today? Combination or across the floor? And then go from there. Number two, what focus do you want to have today? Turns or jumps? Okay. And number three, this could kind of be based on the first two questions once you see like where everybody's at. But what type of warm up are you wanting to do today? Are you wanting to condition? Do you want to do more of a yoga Pilates warm up? Or do you want to do a cardio, high energy aerobic style type of warm up? And of course, try to have all these elements in your warm up. Anyways, but yeah, just having them choose. I've done that before. It's been a really interesting class, and it helps me and it also helps the students in that moment to shift the energy. So that kind of comes along with shifting the energy, as I had mentioned different ideas that can you can shift energy. And the other thing about self-doubt, so this is actually number 8. I guess there's only 8. But knowledge is power. If you are feeling in a low self-doubt type of state, I have always found that continuing education or taking a class or something like that is always so inspiring to me because it brings new ideas. And it cannot hurt to gain more knowledge and to learn more and to grow more. And sometimes that's enough to help pull us out of that self doubt loop because we have new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And so for me, continuing ed has always been a helpful thing. I know this is a little bit longer of an episode, but I just wanted to end on some of these notes because, on the flip side, I feel that self doubt can be a great motivator for us. And though it's not the most comfortable motivator, it shifts us to be better. It shifts us to do more and to be more. I don't think it's a bad thing until it becomes all consuming. But hopefully, these tips that I've mentioned in the episode will help you before it gets to that point. And then, we just need to ask ourselves always when we're creeping into that self doubt, who are we doing this for? Or who is this for? Are you more concerned with being liked, being wanted, or knowing in your heart that your creation or your class is what it was meant to be? And this thought had popped into my head when preparing for this episode, but do you think an artist questions every brushstroke on the painting? Or does a musician question every sound that goes into a song? Not every painting is going to be the artist's favorite. Not every song is going to be a musician's favorite. And the same goes for our pieces and our classes. We're going to have good days and bad days. It ebbs and flows, and the consistency and the showing up and the yearning to be more and to do more, that is going to carry you through until you're able to then break through that. And I think that it's so important that even aside from dance, just stepping outside of that and being a human perspective here, if we can create a practice for ourselves to give back to ourselves, that is only going to help to build our self confidence. And when we have built that self confidence, again, it's not an overly proud thing. It's an internal pride, an internal satisfaction that what we're doing is important. Because if we're doing this, like I said, in the human aspect of it, when you have love in yourself, that is unshakable. No one can take that away from you. That is the thing that it's yourself. It's your energy. You can't lose that. And so if by creating a practice for yourself or using these steps could be helpful for you, going into your classes is going to feel different. Going into your rehearsals is going to feel different. You're going to know that what you're putting out is important because it's your voice. And you don't want to shift and change your voice for others or because of the influence of others, because there is only one you. And that's the beauty of it also. And that's something that also helps me get out of my self doubt is reminding myself that why am I doubting in myself? Because there is never going to be another me. There is never going to be another piece that is going to look just like mine because everybody is so different. Everybody has so much to offer and so much to bring to the table. And so having that love for yourself and love for the work that you do, that is going to push through any amount of self doubt that you ever have. And also, not only just the love factor of this, but the joy. Does what you're doing bring you joy? And if it does, that's awesome. And if it doesn't, how can we shift that? How can we change that? Because time is one of the most valuable things in this life. I mean, this is my opinion. But some people will say money is, for somebody else, it could be something else. But in my eyes, time is one of the most valuable things because you can't get it back. And you could make this amount of money this month and then spend it all. And then you could do something eventually to make more money and do that and this, but you can't gain time back. And so when I'm bringing up this instance of time is how do you want your time spent? Do you want to have your days filled with self-doubt? Or do you want to fill them with love and with joy and to find the joy in what you're doing? And I know that when we're in the dark cloud of self doubt, it can be really difficult to pull out of that. But that's why I hope that today's tools and tips will help you. And if your self doubt is continuing to go further and further and you're having a really difficult time with it, talk with your colleagues or with your friends. Talk with your studio owner or boss and just be really candid about it and discuss and say, I'm having a hard time. How can I pull out of this? Because you're not alone. This has happened to so many of us. And even posting on a Facebook group for dance teachers, getting support, getting help can just help you as well to hear about other ways that people have pulled out of their self doubt. And like I said in the beginning, if you're looking to hear a little bit more about my personal story and what helped me through my burnout, definitely check that episode out. But I know this was a longer episode. I hope that the information in this episode you found valuable and that it will help you to push through the difficulty of self doubt. And I want to thank you all so much for listening to today's episode. And thank you to the suggestion for having this be an episode because I feel like though it was longer, it was a really important and impactful one. So I hope that you all have a beautiful rest of your day. And thank you so much for listening. We'll talk soon.